conversation. This is Two Nerds and a Joke with Robert and Ernie.
Thanks, Disembodied Hot Girl Voice. This is Two Nerds and a Joke with Robert and Ernie. I'm Ernie.
And I am Robert once again, and we're here. We really do have a super day today because we have a true joke, a joke master, if you will. Phil Johnson came back on with us again. I don't know why. Yeah. He loves being tortured by us. But we are here once again to really do some serious comedy talk. Obviously, first off, Happy New Year. It's the first month of the year. Thank you. You've had a very busy season. And you've done some great comedy, and I know Ernie wants to talk about the bees, so I'm not going to let that stop.
Oh, jeez.
So, Eddie Izzard, right, Ernie?
Yeah, Eddie Izzard.
Yeah. So, obviously, a big influencer to you, Phil, and Ernie, you listened to the clip with that Phil did, because I know you've been doing some great posting on your website, roadsideattractions.com. Attraction.
Yep, no singular.
Yep. Yes, singular. Don't do attractions because it does take you to a different site.
Yeah, it's a film distributor.
It is. It's but it's not what we're here for today.
Well, I did hear. Now I hate to interrupt. Robert here. You also mentioned about one of your songs being used in a movie. Is it that production company that released that movie?
Oh no, strangely, no. The movies that my music has been in are movies that most people probably should never see. I get the check, but it's the one I talk about. Actually, we're kind of talking about my last special here, pretty from the back. And so the bit that I do about having my song in a movie was a film. It was a vampire movie called Circle of Five, a very, very independent production that used a song of mine called Rumpelicious Booty Shaker, which
a great name.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a fun song. It was one of the centerpiece, songs on that particular album for my band Roadside Attraction. And the movie that it's in is, how to put it kindly, so bad.
No.
I mean, like really hilariously bad. And so I did a whole bit in the show about this particular movie, which stars a very young Tila Tequila. Somehow after her MySpace fame, but before becoming a Nazi.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
Right in that sweet spot there.
Right. Post MySpace, pre-Nazi. That's when you want to. That's
the vintage tequila right there, right?
Capture those moments. Goodness gracious.
No, but it's a great. I listened to that bit and I swear I was laughing because I'm like, oh my gosh, I could just see, like you put so much of yourself into your work, right?
Uh-huh.
Like each thing has a little bit of your own personality.
Sure.
And then you're like, wow, somebody is willing to buy this off of me and use it for something that they created. Like that's their passion.
Right.
And you're like expecting like this has got to be as good as I hope it is. And then you're watching it, it's like, oh man. Like,
yeah. It was
like not to give away the bit. You should really go to the website and like check it out.
That clip is called, if you're looking for it on Spotify or whatever, it's called Worst Movie Ever.
Wow.
So I was, being kind to it, but.
But I mean, did you feel like obviously if you're the song maker, if you will, for a movie, you don't really get to see production. You just submit your song or say, yes, you can use it. And That's about it. They don't say, okay, here's where we're using it. Here's the scene. Are you okay with it? Right. I mean, it's more of thank you. Use your song now and pay you and you're done.
Right. And I think it depends on what level you're at. If you're trying to license a Rolling Stones song, they're going to want to know where you're using it and how you're using it. But, at an indie level, especially with a small budget film like that, you just I honestly, I'm not even sure. I'm pretty sure I got paid for that one, but I'm not entirely sure. But they don't tell you. They're just going to slip it in. And mine ended up being in a very awkward scene.
Yeah, that awkward is the key word. No, but I mean, as far as movies go, my thing is, like you said, the whole indie scene. That's what you gravitate more towards, don't you? You generally seem to stay with indie stuff, right?
As far as licensing to films, I would be happy to license my film to a major box
Oh,
office.
well.
Yeah.
No, licensing. I'm not talking about licensing. I'm talking about like your roots are more indie roots, right?
Oh yeah, well yeah, I guess in general, yeah, because coming up as a musician, I had a mentor, a guy named Tim Sweeney, who was an industry insider who initially started working for Mercury Records and eventually ended up in the Warner Brothers fold and whoever the hell owns Warner Brothers now. And he was the guy that would fix major label bands when they weren't selling. So if they had a band that wasn't selling or wasn't doing the work that needed to be done, they would get sent to Tim Sweeney, and that was your last chance before you got dropped from your record deal. Well, Tim Sweeney would turn around to all of us independent artists who weren't signed to record deals and go, okay, here's what you need to be doing that all these major label bands aren't. Here's what you can be doing to push yourself and to sell yourself and to move your own music so that you don't need a major label deal. So yeah, from that aspect, and certainly from Tim Sweeney's training all those years, I've definitely stayed pretty indie as a producer.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, you, as you said, you wouldn't mind going big time, of course, but I mean, a lot of your music, at least the little clips that you're doing, a lot of them are comedy songs or parody songs or humorous songs, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously, that would fit best in like a comedy movie.
Well, actually, the thing with most of my stuff that gets licensed is not the funny stuff.
Really?
Or it'll a lot of times if it is, it's the instrumental version. Like I have a song called "Hello Little Monkey," which is a ridiculous song. I wrote the song to be absolutely an annoying earworm. And the instrumental track gets licensed a lot, but not the part with the vocals. And the thing with humorous music or novelty music or comedy music is that it's usually way too specific to be used in a film. A lot of film licensed music has a much more general feel to it. We need a love song here. We need a breakup song here. You know, if the story is too specific, and I've been told this by licensing agents or licensing supervisors, they say this song is too specific. We would have to write the scene to the song rather than use the song in the scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, comedy movies, as you said, use real music. They don't, as you said, don't use comedy music.
Right.
I gotta ask, because I was reading your blog, and speaking of movies and video production stuff, I saw your words, I believe, disaster. That was your shoot for your special.
Oh,
version
yes.
1, not version 2.
Yep.
What happened? Because we do video very low key. Don't get me wrong. We don't have a camera crew. It's just the two of us and a phone.
Yeah.
But what happened? How did it go so wrong?
Yeah, well, it's okay. So the story was on my last few specials, we had gone very low budget. There was my dad running one camera, and we were using prosumer kind of technology and things like that. So this one, I thought, all right, I've got a little more budget. I'm going to step up. I'm going to hire a camera crew that knows, how to white balance a camera and all that kind of stuff that we don't know how to do. And so I decided I also wanted to film out of town because I'm living in the San Francisco Bay Area. Audiences here can be very difficult and easily offended or put off or, whatever. So it's kind of hard to keep them on board for a whole hour. So I thought, okay, I'm going to figure out a different city that I know I'll do well in to film. And I'd looked at Chicago, I'd looked at a few other places, and I ended up going to San Diego at the Comedy Palace down there, which is a club that I've played a bunch of times. I know the audience well. I knew I could probably draw okay there, and they would, book me to play their main room and as a headliner and all that kind of, all the details that go into that. So I set it up. And it was I went down there like a bunch of times beforehand to do a bunch of short little 10-minute sets to test some of the really difficult material just off the bat. They did great. It was fine. The guy who used to book the club referred me to a guy that he had done some video work with. That guy brought in the rest of the crew. And so I thought we had it together. The shows were phenomenal. Like the first show on that night is probably as close as I've ever had to doing a perfect show.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was over the moon at how these shows turned out. And just coasted on that for a couple of days. I drove back home the next day, which is a good 9-hour drive from my home base here in San Jose, and just coasted on the feeling of, man, those were great shows. And then I looked at some of the camera footage and I was like, all right. So we had 4 cameras set up, I think, and 2 of them looked really good. One of them looked okay, and one of them was really sketchy. And then I was like, okay, we can edit around that. I was talking to an editor friend of mine. He's like, yeah, we can do some color correction. We can make that work. And then I got the audio, and the guy who was in charge of the crew was also doing the audio. And he set me up with the audio he sent me was so bad. We may as well have recorded over Skype.
Wow. Ouch. I'm feeling the burn. Going on. Which
is great for a podcast, but a little less great for a comedy special. And it was just, it was 2 things. The guy had shown up an hour before the show rather than 2 or 3 hours before the show, which so we had time to set everything up correctly. And then he had what I'm sure is a bad cable, a single bad 1/4-inch cable. And he had to route the audio differently. So I ended up with 4 tracks of audio all on one track and distorted, and there was nothing I could do with that,
Yeah.
So it was just toast. It was toast after that. I'm still trying to get my money back from the guy, and so I was like, okay, there's nothing I can do about that. I was able to capture some okay audio from one of the cameras. I might release it as a bootleg version when the official version comes out, something like that, because I was so happy with that show. And so now what we're doing is we are recording. I'm doing it in the Bay Area here near home, and we're recording 3 different shows, and I'm going to add some documentary footage in about the process of making a comedy special at this independent level. When you don't have Netflix and Comedy Central throwing money at it, what does it take to actually get a comedy special filmed and out to the public? So it's a little bit documentary, it's a little bit comedy special. It's going to be kind of both. It's called Burning Sensation, which is a name I came up with before all the problems, and now it's coming true. And oof. So it's interesting. So we filmed one of the shows. We're filming 2 more shows. One January 25th in Santa Cruz, and then February 1st in Rohnert Park, California. And then I start the editing and post-production process from there.
Now, do you feel, again, going back to your original thoughts on it, do you feel that it's not going to be the same type of audience because are you going to have to censor yourself at all because of the audience, or are you going to just go with it and hope for the best? Yeah,
definitely the latter, which is part of why we're doing multiple shows. We've already filmed one show, and it was a good show, but it was not an A+ show. It was a B+ show. Okay. But there's enough there that I'll be able to pull in. I figure if I do 3 different shows in 3 different cities, and everybody's going to get on board at some point, and I can cut it up from there. So it's going to be different than a traditional comedy special where it's, one show all the way through. It might be more like, I don't know if you saw Veer Das's last special on Netflix, where he had 2 different shows going, one in India and one in New York City, and 2 different venues. And he was doing different material for them, and they compiled it into one show. I'm taking my one show, and I'm going to piss people off at different points during the show in each of the cities, so I can edit around the parts where I piss people off.
Nice.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you're hoping you're going to piss them off at enough different points that you get one good show out of the 2.
Yeah, exactly. And then the documentary footage gives me a reason to cut up the shows like that and make it a little more interesting and a little more behind the scenes.
Very cool. So obviously being a comedian, and we know you've been influenced by other comedians. We talked briefly about Eddie Izzard and the Bee Bit and other things like that. Are there movies that have inspired you comedically, or do you have a favorite comedy movie?
Yeah, I think my favorite comedy movies go back to Blazing Saddles and Airplane. Those are probably the 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, as I was actually saw, and Ernie, you probably saw this one too. There was a meme flying around the internet yet again, and it was a freaking airplane meme. I was like, it's still out there.
Yeah.
Most ridiculous stuff, most ridiculous puns ever, and they still are out there making people laugh.
And it's so much part of the language and our history now. It's hard to take it out.
Yeah. I did a podcast a while back called Movies That Made Me, and the host had me on, and it was talking about specifically movies that had influenced you so deeply that they became part of your life and influenced the direction of your life. And that was definitely one of them for me. Airplane was a mind blower. And I watched it again right before I went and did that show. And I was seeing jokes that I never saw the first 25 times I watched that movie. Like when he calls when he gets the call from the Mayo Clinic and they flash over to the guy at the Mayo Clinic and there's just jars of mayonnaise on the back wall. I was like, how did I never notice that before?
It's a visual comedy there that gets you. It's great stuff.
Well, that was written in a time when they went for comedy, it was like every scene had to have something completely insane in it, right?
Right.
And they don't. The comedy now is a little bit more sarcastic, I want to say. Than it used
sarcastic
to be.
and story driven, I think, more than visual gags and jokes and things like that, which I think is a great thing. I tend to like story driven stuff more as an art form, but I think that gag ridden type of movie like that is really hard to do, first of all, because it can easily come off as stupid and corny, but when done right, it's great.
Oh yeah. I mean, and the actors in Airplane played it completely straight.
Right.
They weren't fighting for the jokes like Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah.
I mean, he played the doctor role perfect. It's a hospital. What is it? It's a big building full of sick people, but that's not the point.
Right.
It's like.
Now, do you feel there's a modern equivalent to that, or do you feel like it was kind of its own era and there's nothing really that stands up to that now?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of stuff certainly that time that came out in that same sort of vein. Like there was Hot Dog the movie, and there was Kentucky Fried Movie, and things like that were all sort of that similar, very just punchline kind of movie. And I think they tried to do the same thing with like the Scary Movie series. Where they were parodying all the Scary Movie, all that Wayans Brothers stuff is very similar in flavor, but I don't think it's as good. Or at least some of them were okay, but some of those are just god awful bad.
Well, yeah, they don't hold up over time either.
Right.
At the time, I think they parodied like the Nike commercial where it was just, the guys just dribbling, right? And they parodied that in one of the Scary Movies, and I'm like, yeah, it's funny now, but I'm like, in 5 years when everyone forgot about the commercial ever existed, is it still going to be funny?
Yeah. And that's the problem with like super topical humor like that. And even in Airplane, there's a couple of jokes like that, but there's very few. More of them are pretty timeless. And I mean, even when I'm writing, I try to stay away from super, super topical stuff that I know isn't going to fly, a year from now, because everything moves so fast that anything topical is out of date really quick.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, what was it? Just about 2 months ago, it was the lady screaming at the cat. Now everything is Baby Yoda.
Right.
So that's how quickly it changes now.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. I think I'm never gonna get over the lady screaming at the cat. There's so many variations of that one. I mean, he never really gets old. I mean, come on.
True. The now when you're setting up the music for your comedy specials, are you looking like your own music, or are you like kind of searching out there for something that fits in with like the scenes?
As far as like underscore for the special and things like that. Well, I because I have the skill to write and record music, and because I don't want to pay anybody else if I don't have to, any music in the special is going to be all mine. So for instance, the walk on music and stuff like that is an instrumental version of one of my previous singles that has a nice energy for walk on music. So yeah, I try to keep it all in house. And it's less money that way, and I get to promote my own work more.
Oh, true, very true. I was wondering if you were going to do that because, like, to me, like, even I listen to some bits of music, and it doesn't belong to anybody. It's that free domain, like classical music, like the 1812 Overture. For me, is still the Lone Ranger.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's some of that, and actually, Rhapsody. Rhapsody in Blue just became public domain music as of January 1st. So that's interesting. I'm almost trying to think about what could I do with Rhapsody in Blue now.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you use Rhapsody in Blue, everybody's going to think of either the United Airlines commercial.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's the only thing my girlfriend knows it from. Yeah.
Yeah, well, or Fantasia for the 6 people that saw that. The 2000 version, I think it was.
Yes, I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. That actually
it doesn't
really
get a lot of love. It's Fantasia 2000 doesn't get a lot of love.
No, and I really enjoyed that particular segment because they went for the Al Hirschfeld animation style, the art style in that one, which and I love that stuff too. So I was super excited when they did that. Yeah, no, I love Fantasia 2000.
Yeah. See, there you go. Another Fantasia fan. We can count it to 7.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So
well, they're still trying to recover from the Good Dinosaur. Let's give them credit. They're still trying to recover from that one.
Yeah, that was a bad one. So let me ask you. You talked about art styles. Do you do a lot of stuff? Do you read comics? Do you draw at all? Do you do anything on that level too?
No, I really don't. I was never like I actually have a stash of comics sitting in my garage right now. But even as a kid, I mostly was looking at them for investment purposes, which none of them are worth anything. So I was a kid. But I have like a whole bunch of first editions, and I've got the Killing Joke series from Batman, things like that. But when I read comics, I mostly read like an Archie comic and maybe like a Scrooge McDuck. I had very terrible taste in comic books, and I don't have much in the way of visual arts skills. A little bit, like I did a song called "Kissing in the Rain" that was an actual song, and I did a still drawing video for that where I actually did all the artwork in that video myself, just as kind of a lark.
Nice.
But yeah, not a visual artist by any means.
Well, hey, and Scrooge McDuck was actually a very nice cartoon, and Archies were, there. They weren't bad. They were just kind of just ordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah. They weren't. So you have a Killing Joke. I heard something recently, and Ernie, I don't know how you'll feel about this, because I don't know if you went to go see the animated movie of the Killing Joke. So they made an animated one of it recently. I know Ernie and I went to go see it, and they actually did a review of it recently, or maybe it's an older review, but I just saw it recently, and they absolutely tore it apart. And they thought it was awful. Had you had a chance to go see the animated one at all, or did you just read the comics?
I have not watched it yet. It's actually on, I think Netflix or somebody has it, or Disney Plus. Oh, Disney Plus has it, and I was thinking about watching it. But yeah, I heard it was just like whatever they did it wrong. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, we went to go see it because it premiered in movie theaters one night only kind of deal, and we went to go see it, and I thought it was good. But
okay,
the problem is I didn't read the comic before going.
Okay.
So I think I got it from this is a cool story versus this is nowhere near what it's supposed to be. I see. Okay, yeah. That could be. There's always the book was better argument, I guess. And they were always, yeah. Did you have I know you read the Disney comics, because I actually collect the Goofy ones myself. The Goofy. Oh, nice. Speaking of lack of investment, those things are worth nothing. Right. Yeah. Like $2. But. Do you have a preference between DC or Marvel, or do you stick with the Disney and just generic comics for it? I mean, I haven't. It's been so long since I even picked up a comic book, but I would say we are a Marvel household in deference to my girlfriend, who she is a Marvel girl over a DC girl, at least as far as the movies go. Oh, there you go. Well, that's something. Some places will put. Now, speaking of, you said you have Disney Plus. Have you watched anything on there just yet? Well, yeah, I'm mostly The Simpsons, which is ridiculous. Because I looked, we got like 2 years, 3 years of Disney Plus for a reasonable price, and I thought, well, let's do it, because I'm a Disney dork, and so the day it came out, I'm looking through it, and I'm like, all right, everything that's on here that I'd want to see, I've already seen. And everything else, I don't want to see High School Musical, the show, the movie, the documentary, whatever it is. And so the only thing that was on there
that I hadn't really dived that much into was The Simpsons. And the only reason I hadn't dived into The Simpsons that much, when I was a kid and The Simpsons first came on, my parents fully bought into the Bart Simpson is a bad influence argument that was happening in the media at the time. So they never let us watch it. And so it was, I don't know, a couple of years ago, it was like, you know what, I can watch The Simpsons now. I'm a fully grown adult. And so I started watching it on the you know, they had a bunch of the episodes on that FX site that never worked right. And so I'd watched a couple seasons there, and now I'm like fully invested. I'm almost four or five seasons in now. So that's all I've been watching on Disney Plus is The Simpsons. And The Mandalorian. I did watch The Mandalorian.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Mandalorian, such a good show.
We'll talk about that in a second. I know we were trying to avoid Star Wars because we've done a lot recently, but we'll get into that in a second.
Okay.
I want to say to you though, that's one of the biggest things I was watching on there too, which is hilarious that you say that. That and the Jeff Goldblum show, which is hilarious.
Okay, I haven't gotten to that one yet.
He's so weird, but
oh my gosh, yeah.
I'm up to like season 2 right now of The Simpsons, watching every episode. And I don't know, maybe it's a film of nostalgia that I'm seeing it through now, but they're actually not that bad of a family. Bart's not that bad of a kid. Yeah, he gets in trouble here and there, but it actually wasn't bad writing in the beginning.
No, that was the first thing I noticed too. I was like, no, this is a family that's literally just trying hard to beat their deficiencies.
Well, yeah, that's my thing. And I was very surprised about how good it actually was. And I know I've been told that it gets really bad much later on, where it tries to get too commercial or too popular culture or too topical and kind of ruin itself. But this first couple of seasons, I was like, this is actually not that bad.
Yeah.
I don't know what the complaints were about. You know, it's like, okay. So
well, it was, you know, me. I think I was 14 when The Simpsons hit it big, right? So I got to. I mean, I got, you know, a little bit of, you know, comedy, and I was a little bit older. Like my parents weren't, you know, big supporters of The Simpsons until like they actually sat down and watched a few of the episodes. And like those first few seasons, you're right. It's like more family based. Like you saw a lot of the dynamics, like despite it all, like, you know, all the crap that Bart put his family through, like, you know, Homer really loved Bart. And you could tell that Bart really loved Homer too. Like they had those moments, and like, you know, Homer trying his best to like make Lisa happy, and like everything he tries just fails miserably. And then she like says, "Not a problem. You know, you're still my dad." You know, it's moments like that in those first 4 seasons. But then after that, like what Robert was saying, the writing just took a turn, and it just became more slapstick. And then I was listening to a couple of the other guys, not to plug another podcast, The Nerdist, you know, and, you know, those guys, when they talk about something, they really get into it.
Sure.
And they were talking about, like, usually with The Simpsons, it's like they're only good for about 3 seasons at a time. Like, then for like 3 seasons, it's just bad. Then 3 seasons, it's good. Then 3 seasons, it's bad. And I'm starting to see that there with The Simpsons. Like you, I started watching those older episodes, and they were actually really good. I think Conan O'Brien wrote a few of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yep.
And I think he wrote the Metro Rail one, or the monorail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the monorail, which is like, I think it's like one of the top 5 episodes, I think, in TV, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, going down memory lane with that, Disney Plus, that's just what I did. I hit all those old shows, Gargoyles, Simpsons, things like that. I think I watched a couple of those old Disney movies. You know, the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Oh, yeah.
What was the other one? The Love Bug.
Yep.
That Darn Cat. You know, it was stuff like that you just saw, and you're like, wow, it's been like since I was a kid that I saw this stuff. And you look at it, you're like, okay, this wasn't so bad.
Right.
Now, mind you, a couple of them were kind of bad. They're kind of like, oh my gosh, how did this entertain me?
I had even just a couple years ago, actually, I think I bought a DVD of the Apple Dumpling Gang because I'm such a huge Don Knotts fan that I don't care what the writing is. I would just want to see Don Knotts be Don Knotts.
Oh yes. Oh, in that movie too, it was great. Him and Tim Conway.
Oh yes.
Oh my gosh.
Well, funny thing, Don Knotts was one of those actors who never played a role. He was just kind of Don Knotts.
Right.
No matter what he was in, no matter what he was playing, it's like a Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum doesn't act. He just is Jeff Goldblum, and he is Jeff Goldblum. And that's it. He's just there. But yeah, I felt, because I watched those old cartoons too, I felt the Gargoyles stood up. Those were still good. Darkwing Duck and Bonkers and Rescue Rangers didn't quite hold up as much as I thought they would over time. But Gargoyles did. I felt that one did.
That's interesting. I missed that whole Disney Afternoon segment of that history. I was the wrong age for Disney Afternoon, and so I really haven't watched any of those. I'll probably get around to watching them at some point and go, yeah, I was okay with not watching these.
Yeah, like Tailspin got really big. Darkwing Duck, Gargoyles, like that block of time that you were saying. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I missed all that.
Well, the big thing about those, though, is if you look at the animation style and compare it to the animation style today, it was real animation.
Yeah.
It was real animation. The stories might have been kind of weird, but the animation was amazing.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But we're gonna do the conversation that I'm knowing everybody wants to hear us talk about. So we're gonna go full spoiler here on what we all have watched and probably have a lot to say about, which is The Mandalorian. So if you guys out there in podcast land are listening to us, this is going to be full of spoilers, so you might want to turn us off now and come back when you finish watching all of the glorious 8 episodes. But Phil, as a guest, I'd like to start with you. What were your thoughts on the season of Mandalorian?
I liked it. I think it's definitely a more TV vibe, just the pacing of it and the structure of each episode and things like that. At first I was enamored with the music. I could see what they were doing with a kind of Western meets, Hirazaki kind of, Seventh Samurai kind of vibe. And I was like, all right, I'm down with it. But then it just kind of got very generic as the season went on. And I don't like to be I don't like to talk bad about anybody that's scoring anything because they're working really hard. But yeah, I was not enamored with the music by the end of the season. But I'm totally down with Baby Yoda. Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely down with Baby Yoda. And I don't even like human babies. So
I saw a great art piece of adult Yoda holding a baby Yoda up like a scene from The Lion King recently. It was great. It was great. And it's a hilarious thing to see. You really saw the explosion of that come out from everybody just loving on the baby Yoda, just first, foremost, second most, and everywhere. I don't think it'll ever go away.
Right.
Everybody's going to own that plushie, Did it actually come out, Ernie? Have you seen that? I know they were talking.
Yes, it came out. Yeah. And it sold out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it came out sold out. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it came out and was kind of creepy looking. Now, I have to ask, Phil, did you watch Rebels before watching Mandalorian? Have you ever seen the animated show Rebels?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to get into Clone Wars and Rebels, and I didn't particularly like the animation style, for one thing. It's that jerky animation or anime style, which has never been my vibe. But I don't know, the stories didn't grip me for some reason. I keep trying to go back into them. I'll download a few episodes to watch on a plane, and I end up falling asleep. I have not been able to get into those stories at all for some reason. And I've read all of the extended universe, so I've read some pretty bad stuff, but I cannot get into the animated series for some reason.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like when you knew that the Mandalorian was going to be like they're like, because that was something that they really pushed people. Like, hey, we're going to have this all new original story. You can only get it on Disney Plus.
Uh-huh.
Now, I didn't know how deep into the Star Wars mythos were you up to that point. Were you at least a little hesitant about letdown or anything, or?
Well, I mean, I think with anything that comes out from Star Wars, you're always a little hesitant that it's going to be a letdown. And usually it's not. Usually if you go in with that, you go, oh, well, that was better than I expected it to be. But like I said, I've read the entire extended universe, literally. And so I grew up in, I was 4 years old when the first Star Wars movie came out. And so I was right in the heyday for being a Star Wars nerd all the way through, and I still am. And so I was excited to see that they were doing new stuff. I'm always hoping that Disney is not. I'm glad they're taking a break from the movies for a while, because I think there's a little bit of overkill happening right now, and it's going to hurt it as a cultural phenomenon. But overall, I think they're doing pretty good. So I was excited to see The Mandalorian, mostly because outside of a couple of the books, those stories haven't really been delved into a whole lot. But yeah, overall, I thought it was fun. I thought I enjoyed it quite a bit.
So what were the 3 highlights from the 8 episodes that you could tell us about?
Oh, gosh.
3 highlights for you.
Well, definitely Baby Yoda is definitely a highlight. Like, I could not believe Disney did not have a plushie ready to go out the day that episode dropped. I don't know how they missed that one.
Yeah.
As a stock owner, I was very disappointed to see that they'd not planned ahead on that one. I was super excited to see Gus Fring as the bad guy in was it episodes 6 or 7, somewhere where he shows up. You know, I can't think of the guy's actual name, but he was Gus Fring in Breaking Bad.
Yep.
Well, and he was also in Once as the Mirror.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Owns him a little bit now. I don't know. He's a good bad guy.
Oh, he's a great bad guy. Yeah. In fact, there's a guy that works at the Costco by my house here that looks a lot like him. And I just get the chills looking at that guy in Costco when I walk by him. Guy probably doesn't even know, but it's, yeah, I always look at that guy like, ugh. Yeah.
Do something bad.
And then a third, I don't know. I mean, there's been some really nicely done battle scenes and things like that. The right at the end of the 8th episode where the guy brings out the Darksaber, and I had no idea what that is, and I'm still trying to figure out the story of the Darksaber.
Oh my gosh, what a rich history you're going to fall into, my friend.
Oh, that's a great thing. And that's why I asked if you'd watch Rebels, because anyone who's watched Rebels know exactly the history, or a large portion of the history of that saber, because it does up a lot in Rebels. And what everybody wants to have happen now is they want, I mean, obviously, Ernie, I'm sure this is something you want, that people are rumoring already, is they want Ahsoka to show up.
Oh, yes.
That would be cool. Yeah.
That would be cool. And in Rebels, she's in there and she has the Darksaber. Spoiler alert for everybody who doesn't watch Rebels, including yourself. But it's a huge story, and it's so cool. And I really would love that those rumors become true, that she comes back to avenge, you know, because she'd still technically be alive at this point, because she'd just be a little bit older, I feel, because she was younger than Anakin by at least 10 years.
Right.
So she would be old, but she wouldn't be dead.
Right. There's so many of those characters that they could be bringing in that haven't gotten a lot of play even in the movies or anything. Like Ahsoka is a great character in the books, and I guess in the animated series as well, where they can start bringing those in. I mean, if they bring in Mara Jade, I think everybody will be happy.
Oh, yeah. I would definitely be happy with Mara Jade.
Fantastic.
The other one is Asajj Ventress, right? If they could somehow like work that in. I know it's like the timeline's all messed up, and I know purists will be all over us, but why not, right? Like in this timeline, like literally they just basically like just explain everything away, right?
Sure.
In the Mandalorian, they just like, you know, when he's trying to figure out why the child can do the things that he does, you know, Quill's like, I've heard of this, it's legends, you know.
Right.
And that explains it all away. All right. He knows a little bit about this. I don't need to know anymore.
Right. I like that their rationale for everything now is because we said so. Like, all right, cool. Let's go with it.
Yeah,
well, and
like,
it's kind of
can't take the helmets off. Like the whole big thing. Can't take the helmets off, and then everyone's like pointing back at the prequels, like screaming, like, "Whoa! Look at this! Look at this! He has his helmet off!" And they're like, "No! We can fix this. It's a creed." We're like, "Oh,
that was the best line ever. Come on, that fixed so much." It's like, no, we knew what we were doing all along. We promise. We really did.
It seems like every other episode's damage control is what it felt like to me. It's like every time they open up a new thing, it's like, all right, the baby is 50 years old. I wonder if it knows more than what it's letting on, right? You're kind of like wondering that. And then, of course, the next episode, you see him like on the control stick, like trying to like, you know, pull it all out of whack and everything. You're like, nope, it's still a kid. You know?
Well, you have to also think that Yoda was 900 when he died.
Right.
So if you, I mean, because someone did an aging thing. If you know how old, there's a science to the aging of species. Yeah, yeah, I know. It was ridiculous. It was like, guys, it's fantasy. Stop. But Yoda was 900. So if this kid is 50 and still like an infant, then Yoda was probably only about 50.
Right.
So he really died quite young. But, you know, that's for living on a swamp. I'm sure he got an infection or something. But, I mean, one of the greatest things about this series, this Mandalorian series, is it really has the potential to tie up so many loose ends from so many different genres of the animateds, of the Clone Wars, of the Rebels, of all this stuff, even more so than the movies were able to, because it can take its time a little bit more with it. You know, if the last movie had, you know, 4 hours to tell their story, or was in 2 parts, they could have closed up a little bit more gaps and made everybody a little bit happier. But, you know.
Oh yeah, and then of course it's the extra powers of Baby Yoda, right? Like he puts his hand on somebody and heals them, and you're like screaming like, this has never been done before. And then sure enough, this last movie, yeah, you see it done in there like 3 or 4 times. They just explain it away.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
But it's an interesting thing, because you got to think about, you know, you want to get, you know, into the mythos. All these Jedi are getting trained. The person training them has to know these abilities for them to know the abilities. So the question is, how did Rey learn this ability, and who did she learn it from? Was it from Luke, or was it from Leia?
I think part of it though is that they're playing it off as if she wasn't necessarily trained. That was just sort of natural skill, you know.
Yeah.
And they could go that route. Yeah, that would make sense, that everybody who has the Force has something of their own skill or ability that's unique in the Force that they can do that others may not be able to. Because they all go back to Anakin, you know, and he could have saved Padme doing this ability, you know, because he's technically of that bloodline, but he's not a Rey's bloodline, so then no.
Right, yeah.
So
they can explain anything.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
so now you said you read all the extended universe, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I got to ask you, from the extended universe, I mean, you saw them bring some of this stuff out from the extended universe and put it in the Mandalorian, and then it ended up in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Where do you see that going? Let me get your feelings on that.
Well, I mean, officially they've disavowed all those books now. And the reasoning that I'd heard, and this was very interesting when Rise of Skywalker, when I saw it, the reasoning that I'd heard is that they disavowed all the old books because Chewbacca had been killed and they didn't want to kill Chewbacca. And then, so that killed all those stories because the timeline was shot. And so when they quote unquote killed Chewbacca in Rise of Skywalker, I realized it was exactly the same way that he did die in the books, being kidnapped and taken off in a troop transport. And I was like, oh, it's the same thing. And then I was like, no, wait a minute. They disavowed all those books so that he wouldn't be killed. And so I was like, I turned to my girlfriend. I said, he'll be back in 5 minutes. And she was like, really? I said, it doesn't work like the book. She was like, okay.
And I wish they left anticipation a few minutes more. I would have been like,
I was still broken up, man. I was still sobbing, man. I was crying. I couldn't see any of the movie through my tears.
Yeah, well, that's how I felt when I read it in the book. I remember my girlfriend and I, we were laying in bed, we were reading, and before we went to sleep, and I was reading whatever that book was where Chewbacca dies, and I was like, I said, oh my God. And my girlfriend goes, what's the problem? I said, Chewbacca just died. And she went, and she didn't even like Star Wars. And she went, oh my God. I was like, and I was like really broken up. I was like, oh my God, they can't kill Chewbacca, you know? But as soon as I saw that scene, I was like, oh, I know what's going on here. And he's going to be back in a few minutes. But yeah, they could have dragged it out a few more minutes, I think.
Well, Wow. And so for those of you who haven't, you need to go and watch Mandalorian. Get your Disney Plus. It's not that expensive, at least for a little while. And you can do what everybody else is doing. Watch Mandalorian, then cancel. That's what everybody else no. Join
This is the way.
This is the way. Yep, spoken. Well,
No,
Phil,
Phil, that's awesome, man. Can't believe. Yeah, this is you never mentioned this to us before, that you read the extended universe.
Well, you know what it was is I had vowed I was never going to get into that. I was like, there's too many books. I can't deal with it. I don't have that kind of time. And then probably 20 years ago, my girlfriend and I were on a vacation somewhere, and I had forgotten to bring a book to read. And so I wandered into a used bookstore, and I saw, I think it was one of the Han Solo books. I'm pretty sure. And I was like, all right, I'll try one. And I was hooked after that.
yeah.
It's probably the one that's written by Zahn, right? Timothy Zahn?
No, I don't think that was. No, I think it was before Timothy Zahn. I think it was one of the ones that really, really, really came out early when they started doing books. Yeah.
Okay, I remember those books. Those books came after Return of the Jedi.
Right. Yeah, it was like Smuggler's Snare or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I know what group you're talking about. Yeah.
Yep.
Would turn into a movie would be fantastic, but unfortunately, we're never going to get a Han Solo 2 at this point. So.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
The ones we wanted. We didn't want the origin. We wanted the second, third movie that they're not going to come out with, unfortunately.
Yeah, true.
But, you know, when you just start working for Jabba the Hutt, then we're interested. That's what we care about.
No, for me, if they can give me a TV series on Disney Plus about the Rule of Two, I'd be happy about that.
There's a couple of things, and they're talking about doing a Darth Maul series, and we know the Obi-Wan's been confirmed. So there's stuff out there to see, but we'll have to see what they do with it. And again, as you said, Phil, I want to make sure too that they do it right and they don't just overload us with stuff we don't want.
Yeah.
They really time it out well. You know, if they gave us the episodes of Mandalorian, we have to wait a little bit, but we're not going to get more. They're going to space it out nicely, so I hope they keep with that. And that people stay loyal a little bit to Disney Plus so they can continue making the content. Not that they don't have enough money, of course, but you know.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why it became such a thing, is we had to wait 4 or 5 years in between movies, you know, and then there were only 3 and then nothing for the longest time, you know. And I think if they just keep dumping a movie on us every year, then it becomes James Bond and you go, all right, it's another James Bond movie, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, how true. Yeah, good point.
Good comparison there for sure. Well, Phil, I want to say thank you so much for coming on and talking all the things with us because it's awesome. But I didn't want to go without having you get the opportunity to promote yourself because I know you got
a lot of stuff coming. Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Lots of stuff. So it's all at philjohnsоncomedy.com. That's the locus for everything. I will have a new comedy special coming out in the spring called Burning Sensation. As soon as we get that all finished and out, I am in the middle of doing a daily, it's called the 30-Second Song Project, where every day on my social media channels, there's a new short song that comes out. I'm almost 300 songs into it now at this point. It'll be going through the end of March. Yeah, I've been doing it since April 1st of last year. So I'm coming up on my year here in a couple months. But brand new song every day. And that's you just Google Phil Johnson Comedy on any of the social media channels, and I will come up there. It does Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I think I'm throwing some up on TikTok too, because
nice.
I think it's the law now.
Yeah, it is required to be on TikTok now.
Yes,
we have videos up, and that's all about we've done. So yes.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing over there yet. That's a weird one, but so there's all that, and then I'm on the road constantly. This month I'm going to Minnesota and one quick show in Chicago and a show in Mishawaka, Indiana, and then we're coming back here to California to film the last 2 shows for the special, and busy. So it's all at philjohnsоncomedy.com.
They can get tickets there on your website, right? Or do they have to go to the event? Okay.
And when are you coming to Florida?
When am I coming to Florida? That is a good question. Hopefully later this year. I've got a club in Fort Myers that owes me a booking after having canceled the previous one. So hoping to get down there later this year.
Okay.
Oh, we'll make the drive. The drive.
Sweet.
It's a little drive for us, but we will go drive to see you. So let us know.
Nice. Cool, man.
And say, it's you.
We'll be the ones in the back wearing the Star Wars shirts.
Nice.
Well, Phil, it's awesome talking to you again. It's so cool that you're a Star Wars fan like that, of all the stuff. And we're definitely going to follow all your song stuff because your stuff is hilarious. It's good.
Oh, it's great.
So make
Thanks,
sure you're
guys.
following Phil Johnson and his websites and his Twitter and his Instagram and, of course, his TikTok. And don't forget to follow us and ours as well because, well, it's all about the social media. And Ernie, I do have to say we have to end it today on a Mandalorian one instead. So if you would, please.
Peace out.
Peace out, and we have spoken. Have a great day, everybody.